A single mom waitress makes a call. Returning a lost wallet plunges her into a world she never imagined. It was a test of honesty, a test of loyalty, and the key to a powerful secret. Her simple choice is about to rewrite her destiny. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The lunch rush at the griddle was over. Jessica wiped down the last booth, her feet aching. Her 6-year-old son, Leo, was in the back with a coloring book. She needed this job. The tips were bad, her rent was late, and her car made a sound like a dying animal. She lifted a cracked vinyl seat to clean underneath. Something fell to the floor with a soft thud. It was a wallet, thick black leather, worn smooth. It felt heavy in her hand. She shouldn't look, but she needed to find ID to call the owner. She opened it. Her breath caught. The wallet was stuffed with cash, lots of it, $100 bills, more money than she made in 2 months. Folded around the money was a driver's license. The photo showed a man with a stern face, short dark hair, and intense eyes. His name was Marcus Kane. The address was nearby, on the industrial side of town. There were other cards too, business cards. One said Saints of Steel Custom Cycles and Community Center. Another was for a lawyer, and there was a small, strange card with just a symbol, a winged skull with a halo and a phone number. Jessica's fingers trembled. She could take a few bills, just one. Leo needed new shoes. The car needed gas. No one would know. She pictured Leo's face. She thought about what she'd tell him about honesty. She sighed, a deep, tired sigh. She closed the wallet. She called the number on the business card first. A man answered, Saints of Steel. Hi, I'm calling from the Griddle Diner. I found a wallet. It belongs to a Marcus Kane. I think he might be connected to your shop. There was a pause. Yeah, he's here. You can bring it by. The man gave the address and hung up. Jessica got her manager to watch Leo for an hour. She drove her rattling car across town to the address. It was a huge building. Part of it was a gleaming motorcycle shop. The other part looked like a gym and a meeting hall. A big sign said Saints of Steel Community Center. Motorcycles were parked in neat rows outside. Jessica felt small and out of place. She pushed open the heavy door to the shop. The air smelled like oil and metal. Rock music played softly. A few men were working on bikes. They all stopped and looked at her. They were big. They had tattoos. They wore black t-shirts with the same winged skull symbol. Can I help you? One asked. He had a beard and kind eyes, but he looked strong. I'm here to return a wallet for Marcus Kane. The man nodded. I'm Paul, come with me. He led her through the shop, past beautiful, half-built motorcycles. They went into a clean, modern office. A man stood up from behind a desk. It was him, Marcus Kane. He was taller in person. He had broad shoulders and those same intense eyes from the license photo. He looked at her, then at the wallet in her hand. You found it, he said. His voice was low and calm. Yes, at the griddle, in booth 4. She held it out. He took it. He didn't open it. He just watched her. Did you look inside? Jessica felt her face get hot. Yes, to find your ID, to call you. He opened the wallet slowly. He thumbed through the cash. It was all there. He pulled out a $100 bill and held it out to her. A reward for your honesty. Jessica shook her head. No, thank you. I just wanted to return it. His eyebrow went up. You didn't think about taking any. Times look tough. The question was blunt. It felt like a test. I thought about it, Jessica said honestly, looking him in the eye, but it's not mine. My son is learning about right and wrong. I have to show him. Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded, a slight, respectful dip of his head. He put the bill back. What's your name? Jessica Reed. Thank you, Jessica Reed. He put the wallet in his pocket. Paul showed Jessica out. Paul walked her back through the shop. You did good, he said quietly. Not many would bring that back untouched. Jessica just nodded, eager to get back to her normal world. 2 days later, a different man walked into the griddle. He was older, with gray in his beard and sharp, intelligent eyes. He sat in Jessica's section. Coffee, please, he said. He smiled. It was a warm smile. "I'm James." She brought his coffee. He didn't look at the menu, he looked at her. "Jessica, right? Marcus told me what you did with the wallet." Her heart sank. "Was this trouble? I just returned it." "I know, and we appreciate it. The saints appreciate honesty, more than you know." He sipped his coffee. "I hear you're a hard worker, single mom. Manager says you're never late." "What is this about?" Jessica asked, her guard up. "We have a job opening at our community center, office manager. It pays significantly better than this." He named a salary. It was 3 times what she made now. It came with health insurance, dental. Jessica was speechless. It was too good to be true. "Why me?" "Because I didn't steal. Because you were honest when no one was watching, and you were discreet. You didn't call the cops. You didn't tell the whole diner. You called us directly. That matters to us." James leaned forward. "We're a legitimate business, Jessica, but we have complexities, legal battles with the city over permits, nosy reporters. We need people at the front who are trustworthy, who understand loyalty. The job is real. The money is real." She was terrified and desperate. "I don't know anything about motorcycles." "You don't need to. You know about scheduling, invoices, smiling at people, and keeping your mouth shut. Think about it." He left a business card on the table. It had the winged skull and a phone number. "Call me." That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. Leo needed stability. The money would change everything. But the Saints of Steel were a motorcycle club. They looked dangerous. The next morning, her car wouldn't start. It was the final sign. She called the number. James answered. "I'll take the job," Jessica said, her voice shaking. "Good, start Monday, 9 a.m., wear something comfortable." Monday came. Jessica dropped Leo at school and drove to the community center. James was waiting. He gave her a tour. The place was huge. The custom cycle shop was one part. There was also a gym, a meeting hall for community groups, a small kitchen, and a food pantry. The office was bright and new, with 2 computers and a fancy phone system. "Your job," James said, "is to run this front end. Answer phones, schedule appointments for the shop and the community rooms, handle the bookkeeping for the nonprofit side, order supplies. You're the face of the place. You smile, you help, you see nothing, you hear nothing. You say nothing about club business." "Understood." "What is club business?" she asked. James smiled. "If it involves me, Marcus, Paul, or the other patched members talking in the back office with the door closed, that's club business. If it involves a delivery of motorcycle parts, that's shop business. You'll learn the difference." Her first week was a blur. She met the other Saints. Paul, who ran the shop floor, was a gentle giant. A man named Daniel handled their legal stuff. A fierce but funny woman named Mercy ran the community outreach programs. And there was Marcus. Marcus was always around. He was the VP of the club. He was quiet, observant. He'd stop by her desk to ask if she needed anything. His presence was overwhelming. He'd look at her and she'd feel a jolt, a thrilling, scary feeling. Once his hand brushed hers when he handed her a file. The touch was electric. He'd hold her gaze a second too long. It was charged, but he was always professional. She learned quickly. The community center was a real thing. They hosted AA meetings, after-school tutoring, and job training. The shop built incredible bikes for rich clients. The money was good. The Saints were different. They were tough, but they were generous. They fixed her car for free. One of them, a quiet man named Mick, just did it one afternoon. "Can't have our office manager stranded," he said. One day, a slick man in a suit came in. He smiled at Jessica. "I'm with the city zoning board, here to see Mr. Kane about the variance for your expansion." Jessica smiled back. "Let me see if he's available." She pressed the intercom to Marcus's office. "Marcus, a Mr. Albright from the zoning board is here." There was a pause, then Marcus's voice, cold and flat, came through. "Send him in." Later, Marcus came to her desk. "You did good. You didn't tell him I was in a meeting. You didn't make an excuse. You just checked. That's discretion." "It's just manners," Jessica said. "To you, to us, it's a shield," he said. He looked at her, and for a moment the hard mask slipped. She saw gratitude, and something else, something warm. Then he turned and walked away. Weeks turned into a month. Jessica settled into her new life. The weight of constant money worry was gone. She bought Leo new shoes, got the dentist to fix his cavity, and even put a little into savings. The job itself was busy but satisfying. She liked organizing the community schedules, helping Mercy plan a fundraiser, and seeing the tough bikers patiently teach teenagers how to change a tire in the shop's free workshop. But she also saw the other side, the club business. Men she didn't recognize would arrive, looking tense. Marcus, James, and a few other patched members would disappear into the back office, the chapel, and the door would lock. The air in the main hall would change. The prospects, the men trying to earn their patch, would stand straighter, their eyes watchful. One afternoon, a loud, angry man stormed into the community center. He was red-faced and pointed a finger at Jessica. "I want to see Kane, that lying cheat." Jessica kept her voice calm, the way James had taught her. "Can I tell him who's here, sir?" "Tell him it's Rick, from the auto parts supplier. He knows what this is about." She called Marcus's office. "Marcus, a Mr. Rick is here. He seems upset about an order." "Send him back," Marcus said, his voice a low growl. As Rick stomped past her desk, Paul appeared from the shop, wiping his hands on a rag. He didn't say anything. He just leaned against the doorframe to the offices, his massive arms crossed. Rick glanced at Paul and his bluster faded a little. 10 minutes later, Rick walked out, calm, almost pale. He didn't look at Jessica. Marcus followed him out. He walked to Jessica's desk. "You handled that right," Marcus said. "You didn't get flustered. You didn't try to stop him. You just passed the message. That's what we need." "What did he want?" she asked, curiosity getting the better of her. Marcus's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "A misunderstanding on an invoice, it's settled." He looked at her for a long moment. "You're fitting in here, Jessica, better than we hoped." The chemistry between them was a constant, low hum. It was in the way he'd bring her a coffee exactly how she liked it, without being asked. It was in the way their fingers would touch when she handed him paperwork. It was charged, but careful. He was her boss. He was VP of an MC. Lines were everywhere. One Friday, they were working late. The community center was quiet. Leo was with Jessica's sister for the night. Marcus came out of his office, shrugging on his leather cut. "You shouldn't walk to your car alone this late," he said. It wasn't a question. "It's just across the lot," she said. "I'll walk you." They walked in silence. The night air was cool. Under the yellow parking lot light, he stopped by her beat-up sedan. "James told me about your situation. Before the wallet," Marcus said suddenly. "He does his homework, the deadbeat ex, the eviction notice, the car trouble." Jessica felt exposed. Why? Because the wallet wasn't just left by accident, Jessica. She froze, her hand on the car door. What? "It was a test. We leave them in places, with people we're checking out, for jobs, for partnerships. We need to know who we're dealing with." His eyes were locked on hers, unblinking. "You passed, better than passed. You didn't just bring back the cash. You didn't lecture me about carrying so much. You didn't ask questions. You were honest and you were smart. That's a rare combo." A mix of anger and shock flooded her. You set me up." "Yeah, and then we gave you a way out of hell. A real job, a future for your kid. Was the test wrong?" His voice was challenging, but his eyes were searching her face, looking for hurt. Jessica thought of the health insurance card in her wallet, of Leo's happy face, of the safety she felt for the first time in years. The anger cooled, replaced by a weird understanding. In their world, this was how you found trust. "No," she whispered, "it wasn't wrong." He stepped closer. The space between them vanished. She could smell leather and soap. "The test was for the job," he said, his voice dropping. This isn't part of any test." He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was hungry and full of pent-up tension, a claim staked after weeks of waiting. Jessica kissed him back, her hands fisting in the soft leather of his cut, pulling him closer. The world shrank to the feel of his mouth, the solid wall of his chest. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. He rested his forehead against hers. "This is complicated," he murmured. "I know," she breathed. "I'm not a safe man, Jessica. You feel like the safest thing I've ever known." He let out a shaky breath and pulled her into a tight hug, just holding her in the quiet dark. No one had held her like that in years. It felt like coming home to a place she didn't know existed. Things changed after that night. It was unspoken, but everyone knew. Paul would grin when Marcus brought her coffee. James would give her a knowing, approving nod. She and Marcus were careful, especially around Leo, who started spending after-school hours at the community center, adored by everyone. Marcus introduced Leo to the shop, showing him tools. Leo called him Mr. Marcus with awe. One evening, Leo was struggling with math homework at Jessica's desk. Marcus knelt beside him and explained the problem in a simple, patient way. Jessica's heart squeezed tight. This was the real twist. The wallet test found them a loyal employee, but it also brought Marcus a woman who changed his world and a kid who looked at him like a hero. The club's complexities became clearer to Jessica. A local news reporter started snooping, asking questions about the club's real business, suggesting the community center was a front. The city was still fighting them on building permits, likely pressured by business owners who didn't want a motorcycle club in the neighborhood. James and Marcus handled it. Daniel, the lawyer, filed lawsuits for harassment. The club used its legitimate business records, which Jessica kept meticulously, to prove their community impact. They fought with lawyers and city council meetings, not with fists, but the threat of violence was always there, a tool of last resort. One day, a rival club, the Jackals, rolled up to the community center. They were loud and aggressive, trying to intimidate, to provoke a fight that would bring police and bad press. Jessica was at her desk. She saw them through the glass doors. Her instinct was to panic, but she saw James's calm face. He walked out, followed by Marcus and Paul. They didn't wear their cuts. They wore Saints of Steel Community Center polo shirts. James talked to the Jackals leader, his voice too low to hear. He pointed to the building, to the kids leaving the tutoring session. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The Jackals leader spat on the ground, but he got back on his bike. They left. Marcus came back inside. He walked straight to Jessica's desk. He placed both hands on it, leaning down. He was buzzing with controlled anger. "You okay?" he asked, his voice tight. "Yes, are you?" They wanted a reaction. They didn't get one, because we have too much to lose now. His eyes held hers, and the meaning was clear. He had too much to lose. She and Leo were what he had to lose. That night at her apartment, Marcus sat on her couch, Leo asleep on his lap after a movie. He looked at Jessica over the boy's head. "I want you and Leo to move into a house, a safe house, in a good school district, club security on the perimeter." "Marcus, that's too much." "It's non-negotiable," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Then it softened. "Please, let me do this. Let me build you a real home. You're the civilian heart of this operation, Jessica, but you're my heart, period." Jessica looked at her son, safe and content in the arms of a man who tested people with wallets and built empires with his hands. She thought of the lost, struggling waitress she'd been just months ago. She nodded, "Okay." He smiled, a real, full smile that transformed his stern face. Leo stirred and mumbled sleepily, "Are you staying, Mr. Marcus?" Marcus looked at Jessica, a question in his eyes. She nodded again. "Yeah, kid," he said, smoothing Leo's hair. "I'm staying." The house was perfect. It was in a quiet neighborhood with big trees, not far from the community center. It had a fenced yard and a good school nearby. The Saints owned it through one of their legitimate holding companies. Jessica never saw a bill. Marcus had a security system installed that was better than most banks. It was safe, but it didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like a home. Moving day was a spectacle. The entire club showed up with trucks. Paul carried the heaviest furniture by himself. Daniel carefully packed Jessica's few precious things, photo albums, Leo's baby box. Mercy organized the kitchen. They worked with a loud, cheerful efficiency that left Jessica breathless. These terrifying, tattooed men were hanging curtains and assembling bunk beds for Leo. Leo was in heaven. He had his own room, painted blue. He followed the men around, handing them tools they didn't need. "You're like my uncles," he declared. The men ruffled his hair. They were his uncles now. That night, the club had a small party in the new backyard. A housewarming, they grilled food. The mood was light, but Jessica noticed James and Marcus talking quietly in a corner. James clapped Marcus on the shoulder, a look of deep approval on his face. Marcus was being welcomed into a new phase of life, not just as a club VP, but as a family man. The empire wasn't shrinking, it was putting down deeper roots. Life found its new rhythm. Jessica drove Leo to his new school each morning, then went to work at the community center. She was more than the office manager now. She was the trusted link between the club's public face and its private operations. She saw the real books, both for the shop and the nonprofit. The money was clean, but the amounts were large. She understood now. The custom bike shop for wealthy clients and celebrities funded everything. The community outreach, the legal battles, the club's lifestyle. It was a brilliant, self-sustaining machine. Her relationship with Marcus was a quiet, steady force. He stayed over most nights, but was always gone before Leo woke up, careful of appearances. Their moments alone were intense and precious. Sometimes, after Leo was asleep, they'd sit on the back porch. He'd tell her about the club's early days, the fights to claim territory that was now legitimately theirs. She'd tell him about her dreams for Leo, and a secret dream of her own, to maybe go to community college someday, take a business class. "Do it," he said instantly. "The club will pay, consider it professional development." He saw her hesitation. "This isn't a bribe, Jessica, it's an investment in you." She signed up for an online accounting course the next week. The threat from the jackals didn't disappear, it simmered. The city permit battle came to a head. The city council scheduled a final vote. The jackals, allied with a corrupt councilman named Higgins, were pulling strings to get the Saints' expansion denied. They wanted to strangle their legitimate income. The night before the vote, James called a church meeting, the full club. Jessica knew this was serious. She worked late, finishing a presentation of the community center's impact, numbers of kids fed, jobs trained, charity dollars raised. She was putting it in a folder when Marcus came out of the chapel. His face was grim. "It's going to be a fight tomorrow," he said. "Higgins is in the jackal's pocket. He's going to make a speech about criminal elements and community safety. He'll have the local news there." "We have the numbers," Jessica said, holding up her folder. "The truth is on our side." Marcus took the folder. He looked at her, and the pride in his eyes warmed her. "You're our secret weapon, you know that? The respectable face," he sighed. "But Higgins plays dirty. He might bring up personal things, about me, about us." "Let him," Jessica said, her chin lifting. "I'm not ashamed of you, of this life. You gave me my life back." He kissed her hard and quick. "Stay close to me tomorrow." The city council chamber was packed. Saints members sat quietly in the back, wearing dress pants and collared shirts. They looked like a block of serious businessmen. The jackals and their supporters were on the other side, louder, trying to intimidate. Councilman Higgins, a smarmy man with a too-tight suit, gave his speech. He called the Saints a gang, talked about noise complaints that Jessica knew were fabricated, and hinted at violent incidents. He pointed to the club members. "These are not the people we want influencing our youth." Then it was James's turn to speak. He was calm, articulate. He talked about investment, jobs, community revitalization. Then he nodded to Jessica. "And I'd like to introduce Jessica Reed, our office manager and community liaison, a single mother who lives in this district. She can tell you what the Saints of Steel Community Center really does." Jessica's legs felt like water as she walked to the podium. The lights were hot. She saw Leo, sitting between Paul and Mercy in the back, giving her a thumbs up. She saw Marcus, his intense gaze willing her strength. She opened her folder. She didn't talk about motorcycles. She talked about the after-school program that helped Leo with his reading. She showed the numbers from the food pantry. She introduced Mercy, who spoke passionately about their work with homeless veterans. Jessica's voice was clear and strong. She was the picture of honest, hard-working motherhood. When she finished, there was applause from the neutral observers. Higgins looked furious. He stood up for a rebuttal. "Very touching," he sneered, But let's look at who she's really working for. Marcus Kane, a man with a known criminal record. He listed old charges, bar fights, disorderly conduct from when Marcus was young and wild. And now, Ms. Reed, you're romantically involved with this man, aren't you? Living in a house he pays for. Doesn't that seem like a conflict of interest? Or maybe just poor judgment? The room went silent. All eyes were on Jessica. She felt her face burn. She saw Marcus start to stand, his face dark with rage. James put a firm hand on his arm. Jessica leaned into the microphone. Her voice didn't shake. "Councilman Higgins, you're right. I'm in a relationship with Marcus Kane. He is a good man. He's helped build a place that feeds the hungry and trains people for jobs. You're asking me about my judgment? My judgment tells me that a man is defined by what he builds, not by his past mistakes. My judgment tells me that the Saints of Steel have done more for this community in 1 year than you have in your entire term. You're not voting on a man's past, you're voting on a community center's future. Don't get them confused." The chamber erupted. This time, the applause was thunderous. Higgins was shouting, trying to regain control, but he'd lost the room. The vote was called, it passed, the Saints had won. Outside in the parking lot, the club gathered. There were handshakes, quiet smiles. Higgins stormed past, followed by the Jackal's leader, who shot Marcus a look of pure hatred. "This isn't over," the man hissed. Marcus just stared him down until he looked away and left. James pulled Jessica into a bear hug. "You were magnificent. The civilian heart just became our champion." Later at the house, Marcus found her in the kitchen. He didn't say a word. He just pulled her into his arms and held her for a long time. "You stood up for me," he finally murmured into her hair, in front of everyone. "You stood up for me first," she said, with a wallet full of cash and a job offer. He laughed, a low, warm sound she didn't hear often. "Best investment I ever made." The victory was sweet, but the Jackal's threat was now personal. They'd been humiliated. A week later, the club's auto shop was vandalized overnight. Windows smashed, spray paint on the walls. It was a petty, annoying act. The real attack came on a rainy Thursday. Jessica was working late, finishing the quarterly reports. Leo was with Mercy at the community center gym. Marcus and James were at a meeting across town. A lone figure in a hoodie slipped into the community center lobby. Jessica looked up from her computer. "Can I help you?" The man pushed back his hood. It was a young, hard-faced guy she didn't know. He had Jackal's tattoos on his neck. "Where Kane?" he demanded. "He's not here," Jessica said, her hand moving slowly toward the panic button under her desk. Daniel had installed it. "You're his old lady, right?" the guy sneered, walking closer. "He's got a lot of love for this place. Be a shame if something happened to it, or to you." He pulled a metal pipe from his jacket. Jessica's heart hammered. She pressed the button. A silent alarm went to every patched member's phone. "You should leave," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. He laughed and swung the pipe, smashing a computer monitor on a nearby desk. "Or what?" Suddenly, the door to the shop burst open. It was Marcus or James. It was Paul. He must have been working late. He had a large wrench in his hand. His face was calm, but his eyes were deadly. "The lady said you should leave," Paul said, his voice a low rumble. The Jackal's prospect spun around, pipe raised. Paul moved fast for such a big man. He dodged the swing and grabbed the guy's wrist. He twisted. The pipe clattered to the floor. Paul shoved him hard, sending him stumbling back toward the door. "Get out. Tell your boss the next one who steps foot in our place, for any reason, doesn't walk out. That's the only warning you get." The prospect scrambled to his feet and ran. Paul turned to Jessica. "You okay?" She nodded, shaking. "Thank you, Paul." "Family," he said simply, as if that explained everything. He picked up the pipe. "I'll call Marcus." When Marcus arrived minutes later, he was a storm. He went straight to Jessica, checking her over. "Did he touch you?" "No, Paul was here." Marcus's jaw was clenched. He looked at Paul, a world of gratitude passing between them. Then he called James. "It's time to end this, the clean way." The clean way was Daniel's way, using the law. Daniel had been digging. He'd found evidence that Councilman Higgins was taking bribes from the Jackals, not just for the permit fight, but for looking the other way on their illegal activities. Daniel also found that the Jackals' clubhouse was in violation of a dozen fire and building codes. He compiled it all into a neat package. The next day, two things happened. First, city inspectors descended on the Jackals' clubhouse, shutting it down. Second, the evidence against Higgins was delivered to the district attorney and the local newspaper. It was a total legal annihilation. The Jackals were scattered, their reputation ruined. Higgins resigned in disgrace. The Saints hadn't thrown a single punch in retaliation. They'd used the system to destroy their enemies. Jessica had watched it all from her desk, handling the influx of press calls with smooth, rehearsed lines about the club's focus on community. That night, the club held a quiet celebration at the house. It wasn't a wild party. It was a barbecue, kids running in the yard, men talking softly. Jessica watched Marcus with Leo, showing him how to flip burgers on the grill. He was so natural with him. James sat next to Jessica on the porch steps. "You know," he said, "that wallet test. We've done it a dozen times, found a few honest people, good mechanics, a decent lawyer, but we never found someone who would become essential. You hold this thing together, Jessica, the books, the face, the heart, and you keep him grounded." He nodded toward Marcus. "He was all sharp edges before you. Now he's got something to lose. It makes him smarter, stronger, makes the whole club stronger." Jessica smiled. "I just returned a wallet." "You returned our faith in people," James corrected. As the evening wound down, Marcus pulled Jessica away from the crowd into the quiet living room. He got down on one knee. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Jessica," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "the test was for an employee, but you passed a test I didn't even know I was giving. You walked into my world and made it a home. You trusted me, you fought for me, you love my kid like your own. Be my wife. Let me be a real father to Leo. Let's make this family official." He opened a small box. The ring was beautiful, a simple diamond flanked by two smaller, square-cut stones. "The side stones are from my mother's ring," he said. "The center one is new, for our new start." Tears streamed down Jessica's face. She nodded, unable to speak. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. He stood and kissed her, and the cheers from the backyard, where the club had been secretly watching, erupted through the open window. The wedding was 6 months later. It was held at the community center. Of course, Leo was the ring bearer. Paul was Marcus's best man. Mercy was Jessica's matron of honor. James walked her down the aisle. The whole club was there, their cuts polished, their smiles genuine. They said their vows under an arch decorated with old motorcycle parts and fresh flowers. As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the roar of 50 engines starting outside shook the walls, a salute of pure joy. Jessica Reed, the struggling single mom waitress, was now Jessica Kane. She was the office manager, the community liaison, the heart of a legitimate empire, and the love of a man who ruled it. She had returned a wallet, not knowing it was a test. In doing so, she had passed the hardest test of all, finding a love strong enough to tame an empire and building a family where she least expected it. The Saints of Steel hadn't changed for her. They had simply opened their gates, and she had walked in and made herself indispensable. She was their greatest acquisition, and they were her forever family. Thank you for watching. How far would your honesty take you? Could it change your entire life? What would you have done with that wallet? Subscribe and hit the notification bell. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from.